Welcome back to another one of my videos. This is going to be my team draft overview for the CPL. It is going into its third season. I am going to be new into this league. Hopefully I do well. First off, some notes about other things going on with my channel. First off, the GGDDL, which was the doubles league that I was recording. The reason it stopped was because my partner did not have time to record on his end, so it did not seem right to just have me record everything, and yeah, so just canceled that. But in that league, we are 2-3. We just won our last 2 games against Gudrick Gang, and somebody touched my mom's spaghetti. And hopefully we can win our last 2 games and hopefully maybe possibly make playoffs, which would be nice. With the WCBL, why the battle is later than usual is because my opponent this week, JS, has been gone for the last 2 weeks on a research trip of some sort. So, and he just got back like last night, and he's kind of jet lagged, so getting an extension for that, so that won't probably come up until next week as a video, as well as the power ranking videos. That's also why this week's and last week's will be late, because JS is making up a battle after Teeny replaced a coach. So enough about that. Let us get into my draft. First off, we got Tapu Bulu as a franchise pick. Personally, I don't really like franchising in leagues because it just means that one person just keeps using the same mon over and over, and I feel like it's sort of not fair to other people who might want to try and use that mon, or any new mon for that matter, which is usually my strategy, is to just use new mons that I haven't used in league before. But I franchise Bulu coming in. Bulu, I've always kind of wanted to use it in league. Used it in some VGC shenanigans, but haven't really used it in league before. Good offensive threat with that base 130 attack, and has the coverage physically to back that up with moves like Superpower and Stone Edge and Mega Horn, as well as it can be run bulky with Nature's Madness or Leech Seed. Gets good setup with Bulk Up and Calm Mind, so I could also run it, especially that would be for its fairy move, because Tapu Bulu does not get a physical fairy move, which is quite sad. And Tapu Bulu gives me nice support with the Grassy Surge, setting up grassy terrain, weakening ground type or earthquakes against my team, which my next few picks kind of need. Moving on, I was 4th in draft pick, so I picked up Megazord X. Usually don't get this mon because I'm later in draft, or I have a plan for a different Mega. Megazord X is always a threat in the league with its hard-hitting base 130 attack with the Tough Claws, Flare Blitz Stab coming out, always good. Dragon Claw, super powerful. With that grassy terrain, Earthquakes will be doing less to it. Yes, it sometimes runs Earthquake as well, but I can easily not bring Tapu Bulu with the grassy terrain if Earthquake is that important, or I can easily play around it. It is also quite threatening on the special side. I don't know why people don't remember that. It does have base 130 special attack, which is the same as its physical attack. Overheat, Focus Blast, Solar Beam, Fire Blast, Dragon Pulse, Air Slash, Hidden Powers, quite good. If I want to go that route, could go bulky with Roost, maybe even Will-O-Wisp, which is nice to weaken his physical threats. And I have a Grass Fairy and Fire Dragon right off the bat, which is quite nice, building up my Fire, Water, Grass, and Steel Dragon Fairy core. And yeah, hopefully Megazord X can put in the work. Next up, I drafted Tyranitar as another tier 1 because we are forced to draft 2 tier 1s in this league, which is quite nice. Tyranitar helps with covering for kind of blanking here, but Tyranitar, I use Mega Tyranitar in WCBL Season 1. It's a nice Pokemon, gives me rocks, quite bulky with sand streams to boost that SPDF of 110 or 100, and it has a defense of 110, so quite bulky. Gets coverage especially and physically, could set up with Dragon Dance or Rock Polish. Gives me a Pursuitmon, which is nice for psychic types. And yeah. Sure, it also gets Earthquake, but once again can play around that with the grassy terrain, and it gets other coverage, so it doesn't have to completely rely on Earthquake. Could easily run Earth Power if it's special. And don't have to run Sandstream every time. Could use it for the Unnerve, which is quite nice. Next up, I drafted Gyarados. Really wanted to try Gyarados out because it's always a threat whenever I try and face it, and hopefully it will pull through me on this side. Intimidate is always nice. Moxie is nice for sweep up, sweeping potential. Gets coverage physically and specially. This is my Super Z-Mon, which means it can use status moves as well as offensive moves. So expect Z Splash to come out. Maybe even a Z Rain Dance if I want to run special Hydro Pump Hurricane Thunder set with Z Rain Dance for the speed boost. Might try that if I see it viable in a matchup. Also noting Tapu Bulu is an offensive Z-Mon user for my team. It's kind of between Bulu and Gyarados as my Super Z move users. Why Bulu is for the Z bulk up, which is nice. It's like a sword stance with a +1 defense, which is always nice. But I decided to go for Gyarados because of its insane coverage physically and specially. even though its special attack is only 60. Gyarados rounds out my fire, water, grass core. Its weakness in electric is resisted by my fire and my grass mon, which is nice. Moving on, I decided to pick up Dhelmise. I wanted Dhelmise for a rapid spinner. It also benefits from grassy terrain, increase in damage from Power Whip, as well as it can take a poison hit, which Bulu does not. If I so it kind of gets into mind games with my opponent, into which grass I bring, or if grass is really good against my opponent, I could bring both, but can't just run poison coverage for both grass. Can run flying though, which is sort of a problem, or fire, but I feel like my previous months help deal with that. Dhelmise is a good rapid spinner as well because it can spin block. I also wanted a ghost type for spin blocking as well. It basically has 3 stabs with that steelworker ability, which is nice. Slow mon with gyro ball gives me a mon with knockoff and a bulky mon all around. Slap on an assault vest, and that thing is living quite well. And yeah. Next up, I drafted Cobalion. Cobalion is nice. It gives me a fast rocker at base 108. It can be a setup mon both physically and specially, which is nice. Gives me momentum with Volt Switch. Gives me a fast taunter. And it rounds out my Fairy Dragon Steel Core, which is nice. Cobalion is nice because of that base 129 defense, and especially in grassy terrain. With Earthquake Weakened, main way to hit it then would probably most likely be fighting, and so far my team is not really afraid of fighting types. It also gives me a mon with Justified, which will get an attack boost if hit by a dark type. So if my opponent decides to try and bring knockoff for my team, that is really good, and Justified helps with later mons that have a dark weakness. So trying to deter dark type moves against my team. Next up, like I was saying, Justified is nice for the Claydol. Gives me another rapid spinner as well as a rocker. With the levitate ability. Claydol also gives me a really bulky mon with shenanigans, and since it is more specially inclined, well, its attack and special attack are the same, but usually run with earth power if it is going to run a dark move or a ground move. Will not be affected by that grassy terrain. Gives me screens, which is nice, and gives me a trick room setter for my solar mons, such as the Tyranitar, the Dhelmise, sort of the Bulu. and it is a really bulky mon all around. And there is some other shenanigans that I can do. Forgot to mention that Cabellion is my third Z-Mon user. It is my offensive Mon user. So shenanigans with its coverage and setup. Moving on, I decided to draft Galvantula. I needed an electric type. Well, don't really need electric type, but electric types are always nice. It also gives me sticky webs, which is quite nice for my team. Helps with Megazard X, helps with Cabellion, and yeah. Helps my Mons outspeed faster threats, because so far my fastest Mon is this Galvantula and Cabellion at 108. Which is sort of a problem. Compound Eyes is nice. Increases accuracy, so I can't just launch off a Thunder. Could use Unnerve if I am afraid of berries. And Swarm if I'm running like a sash set to increase the power of Bug Buzzes. Galvantula also gets moves such as Lunge, so I can lower my opponent's attack. Gets nice coverage with Electric, Grass, and Bug. Gives me another Momentum on with Volt Switch. Does get Light Screen, does get Sucker Punch, which is nice for priority. And yeah, Galvantula doing what it is mainly doing. It'll probably mostly be run with webs most of the time. Moving on to my next pick, I decided to pick up Glaceon. Why Glaceon? I needed a Mon from the lowest tier, and I noticed my team really didn't have that amazing special attack, so trying to fill that out with this. It also gives me a Wish Mon, even though its base HP is only 65. But it does have quite a nice defense at 110. Special attack of 130 is quite nice to blow things back. Has Snow Cloak, has Ice Body. Not that useful abilities without Hail. Someone did draft a Alolan Ninetales though, which if they decide to bring that against me, and I have Snow Cloak, will not be breaking Evasion Clause then, because I did not set up the Hail. Gets Aurora Veil if I do decide to go like a nice body Hail set. Aurora Veil could be nice. Gives me a slow momentum grabber with Baton Pass. Gives me a Mon with Ice Shard for quickly hitting those dragon types, such as Salamence that like to set up with dragon hits. And all around good cleric with Wish and Teal Bell. And has potential to set up with things like Curse if I really want to run physical. Does get Barrier if I just want to go for a bulky defensive set, since most Mons that want to hit Glaceon are on the physical side with like Rock and Fighting type moves and Steel type moves, set up some barriers and sponge those hits, and I could easily Baton Pass those barriers away, which is quite nice. Moving on, I drafted Garbodor. This is the only Mon that was kind of not in my initial sort of plan. Originally I wanted Reason, but that was taken by someone else. But Garbodor is nice with weak armor if I want to try and go with a sweeping set, especially with Tapu Bulu. With the grassy terrain, Earthquake will be doing less. Could easily run a curse set with this weak armor. Aftermath is nice to get some chip, as well as gives me a Mon with Haze to get rid of setup, Clear Smog as well. Gets nice coverage all around, average stats all around except for special attack, as well as gives me spikes, which is quite useful in any matchup, especially since my only hazard removal is Rapid Spin. Well, I guess Charizard does technically get defogged, but Megazord X is more likely to be brought as an offensive threat. So a lot of hazards on this team so far with Galvantula and my Rock Setters and spikes and toxic spikes from Garbodor. And great hazard removal with Claydol and Delamise. Next up, I drafted Ditto, mainly because it was near the end of the draft, and based on 3 points, I knew that no one could snipe my last pick if I drafted Ditto now. Ditto is basically a safe bring if none of my other mods do well. It also helps the tier set up on my opponent's side with that imposter, and basically gives me any my opponent has that could be a threat to their team, so they don't just have to worry about my team, they have to worry about their team. And last but not least, I drafted Meloetta. Meloetta is nice. It gives me a hard-hitting Normalmon, and it gives me another hard-hitting special attacker. As well as if I bring Pirouette form, it increases my speed up to 128, which would be my fastest mon. So far, kind of looking at my draft, I do notice that there is that speed gap between, with my fastest mon being 108, not including Pirouette form from Meloetta, but hopefully make up for that with webs on Galvantula, as well as possible Scarfers. Serene Grace is always a nice ability, getting those added or increased added effects, such as the death drops and special attack drops, and what have you. Meloetta is also nice, gives me momentum with U-turn, and is quite bulky, especially, which is nice for my team. Also doubles down on Psychic, but that is fun because it does not double down on the Ghost weakness. So if they are just going to bring Dark type coverage for Claydol and Meloetta to cover that, they risk giving me a justified boost on Cobalion, which is kind of a strategy I have, so don't have to really worry about doubling down on Psychic, as well as hard-hitting normal stab is always good, but I kind of prefer dual type normal types because normal in itself is not the best because it doesn't really hit anything for super effect. And that is my team. My first week opponent is going to be AsterJ of the Montreal Hapsels, and catch me for that team builder, which is probably going to go up sometime before Friday, or maybe on Friday, whenever the battle happens, slightly after that, so most likely Friday because that's when it's scheduled. And catch you then. Bye bye.